here we are, emergency edition of the programme because the World Cup is in turmoil. But instead of that, we're going to talk about something else because joining us, pleased to say, Danny Ward. Danny, how are you? And what are you up to these days?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on. Just Mrs. Ward keeping me busy, ain't she? Trying to stop me pottering about too much and give me loads of jobs to do. It's the school holidays as well, so trying to entertain the kids and just enjoying the sunshine.
So the sunshine meaning you're not chomping at the bit, ready to take on another new challenge just yet, then?
Not yet, no. Just like I say, enjoying the time with the family. It's been a bit of a crazy couple of weeks and taking some adjusting to life away from rugby. But just enjoying the family time and the school holidays, which obviously we don't normally get to do with being involved in rugby league.
I had a vision that would be interrupting you laying on your sofa in your pajamas eating cornflakes, and you've been doing that for the last 2 weeks.
That's it. Pajamas on underneath this little eyeline here. That's me. Pajama bottoms on, and I thought I'd better get outside and get off the sofa for a little bit. But there's a couple of days of moping around, I think, and then Mrs. give me a kick up the backside and told me to sort myself out, and you kind of move on and focus on next job really.
We're really intrigued about rugby league development. We always have been, and London clearly is part success story, maybe unfulfilled, possibly always will be. But I can't imagine that when you first accepted the opportunity to go down there, that you saw yourself being there for 10 years?
No, not at all. I signed a 2-year deal originally. My partner was expecting his first child at that point, and thought it'd be 2 years in London, and then come back up north. Really, that might just come back and get a club back up north. But not to be. We came down and fell in love with the place, fell in love with the club. Stopped for another 2 years on top of my contract until I retired, and then was lucky enough to help out in the coaching setup there at London, and here we are, 14 years later. So it's something I never imagined doing, coming from Yorkshire, and that's all I'd known. To actually come to the south and stay here was we never imagined it, but happy we did, and loving life down here.
Is rugby league in a better, worse, or the same place that it was when you arrived now?
Probably worse, I'd say. We're not in Super League. It was when I came down. So I mean, that's no disrespect, but if that's where you want to be in Super League. So in terms of that side of things, it's hard being in the Championship, and you all want to be at the top table, don't you? And that's where London wants to be. I think the community game, that's strong down here, and locally to where we are as well. So involved with that where we can be, and the pathways, still there, which it was when we came down. So there's lots of areas it's progressed. Obviously, it's hard in the Championship, especially with your funding that you get from your distribution money is less, and it's hard for a team to have to do all that work in the community on such an area, build the game in such a big area as London. Without, I don't think there's much help down here as there was from the RFL. It's no secret. When I came down, I think there was 8 development officers for the south of England, and now there's just 1. So is that in a better state? Certainly not.
But is that something that the club should be responsible for? And it gets us back to the discussions which you, having been in the centre of it, far more appropriate person to answer than anyone outside. Should we be giving London dispensation? If the game is serious about having a presence in the capital, do we need to do more to make sure that London aren't in the Championship?
A tough one. I think there's help certainly needed in ways. You talk about distribution money in the Championship. I think that's currently around £300,000. That'll go down, as we know, when the TV money gets distributed, because that's taking a hit. So for a club like London to run full time, you've got to run full time. If you've got aspirations to get Super League, they have to be full time. They've got to attract the kind of players that you need to have a serious title challenge. You've got to be a full time club and to get back up. But then to have that money to invest, in marketing the game, community, officers, things like that, and them costs are just spiraling. So when you talk about that it doesn't go very far. £300,000 if you've got your ground, your upkeep, your staff, your off-field staff, your players. There's just it's too much for club to. You've got to pick kind of what your priority is there. And if it's getting promoted, then your priority has got to be promoted. And that then probably takes a hit in terms of your things that you'd like to do to help grow the game and help the community game down here. So I think that's where, if the game is serious about expanding to these places, then there needs to be a strategic plan for how we do that. And is that investing money in development offices in that area, marketing, bringing international games to them areas? How can we do it? What's the best way of doing it? I don't know. There's lots of questions that I don't have the answers to in that one.
We don't have the answers to anything either. The club are about to move to Wimbledon. I mean, you've been involved down there for a long time. You've developed roots down there, but the club always seems to be moving all the time. How hard is that in terms of building the club up when from season to season you seem to be at a different venue?
Yeah, it is frustrating. So from a performance side of things, you get we had a facility there at Ealing, which, just speaking from a performance side, was fantastic. Everything on site, and then we've moved again and been involved with a few moves since my involvement here. Started at the Stoop and then went to Barnet and Ealing, places like this, and the training grounds moved as well. It is difficult, but that's kind of accepted that's what the club's done for a number of reasons, and we try not to let it affect our side of it. Really, all we can focus on is on the lads and the training and the games, and we can't let the too much like that affect us. We just got to keep the lads focused on what we do. Obviously, it does affect your fan base. You spend a long time, so like we did at the Stoop. We spent a lot of time around that area of London. Again, community officers in there who were into schools, pushing kids to clubs like that around that area. And then next minute we move, to North London, which you could 10 miles away, and it could be an hour journey for a supporter to go, and you lose a lot of fan base from doing that. So it certainly doesn't help. The club's got their reasons for doing that, I think.
I know that one of the things you've been impressed with from the minute you got down there as a player and you've tried to promote as a coach is the local talent. So when we talk about sort of dispensation, do we need to look at a system whereby someone who is produced by the London system is allowed to be retained in that system, and maybe there isn't a salary cap penalty on that? I know you pretend to like Louis McCarthy Scarsbrook, we all do, but the truth is he'd love to still be. Yeah, he'd love to still be playing in London. His family's there, his roots are there, he's still retained his Cockney accent, but he had to go to St Helens to get his value. If there was some way of keeping London-produced players in and around London, that would almost ensure that you were a Super League team anyway. Is that something we need to look at?
It's certainly worth looking into. If you could get dispensation on salary cap, that would help. But I think the reasons that Louis and people like Clubby wanted to move was to go win things at big clubs, and at that time London wasn't challenging for honours at the top end of the table, and an opportunity comes to go to St Helens or Wigan. You think they'd move there for less money. So I don't think it's always about the money side of things. Them lads were just ambitious to go playing big games, playing finals. As you've seen Louis win the Challenge Cup at the weekend, it's taken all this time to go up there and win that. And it's great to see. I think a lot of it comes down to playing at that. While you've not got London in the top league, it's even harder to hold on to your kids. And it's great to see, like, for instance, like Rob Butler, who's just gone to win it, and you get you. But he did a fantastic job for us. Played in the £1 million game. Did a great job at Super League. Got himself in the England Knights. You seem to get any lads to a certain level, and then big clubs will come looking for them. And I don't know whether any kind of extra money or dispensation on the salary cap is going to keep them lads when a big club comes in, unless London itself is a big club. And it's a bit catch-22. But to be a big club and to be challenging, we've got to keep all the your good local kids. But you're not going to do that until you're a big club. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle. You're gonna lose them up north keep as many as you can. But that's the problem that you do have when you've got. I like to think we've got a fantastic youth system down here and producing plenty of good players for the Championship. You see them in Championship, League One, Super League every week. So it's definitely got that pathway there, and the Broncos, tries to encourage that pathway and give these lads an opportunity to come through and play at first team. But that's the heartbreaking thing is when them lads move on. You're pleased to see it because you want to see them lads do well. But at the time when you want them to be successful for London, it's hard to see them leave and go up north.
But there is a history at the start of Super League of London being one of the top clubs. Finished second, got to a Challenge Cup final, were probably one of the more credible teams in the World Club Challenge, both over in Australia and here. Crowds of around 6,000-7,000 in a settled location. It can be done. Do we just need to do more to make sure that the Rob Butlers do have a reason to stay there and keep all that talent?
I think more can be done by the game to expand. If you're serious on expansion, like I said, if you're wanting this academy pathway, you're wanting this whole new pool of talented kids down in the south, then it's got to be a game-wide effort to expand the game as well. And that's not just handouts and money or anything like that. Like I say, it's time and effort and getting people, bodies on the ground down here to grow it. And it's a long-term vision as well. That's not going to happen, in 6 months, a year. It's devoting time to growing the game elsewhere, and I think, definitely more can be done. It's a huge opportunity, to grow the game. We talk about, a massive expansionist, and places like Newcastle, Toulouse, London, if you're having them in the top flight, I think it's great for the game. But I think a lot goes back to kind of a promotion relegation argument that I'm not seeing that works. I think it'd be better if Super League went back to a franchising system and put some of these teams, some of these bigger cities in the Super League. And I think all of a sudden you put a couple of French teams in there, a London, Newcastle, teams like this, has a whole different look to it, and it's a lot more exciting as a game, as a sport. So that's not doing away with clubs in the heartlands as well. Before I start getting peppered with loads of abuse from, I think there's room for everybody, and if you've got a team and you're willing to invest in your infrastructure and you've got academies, scholarship programs, and you can afford to be full time and got good investment and good backers, let's get them teams in the top league.
Well, we're talking about expansion, so let's get to this point. You ruined Toronto. You and the London Broncos ruined Toronto by beating them in that £1 million game. Do you not take any blame for their demise in the sport?
Do a little bit, yeah. I do actually think about that, where it could actually be now, or what it could look like now if we wouldn't have been selfish and won that £1 million game. Who knows? That's just not knowing, is it? Toronto were a fantastic team that year, and it's a shame that we both couldn't come up. Again, big fan of Toronto and what they did. Got to witness firsthand, the amazing atmospheres and at them games over there. I saw how much work got put in, and it was a real shame that they can't be in the league now, and we can't grow on what we had there for a small period. And who knows, where that'd be right now.
Obviously, I'm being slightly sarcastic there, but was that one of the highlights of your coaching career then today? That victory away from home against the odds?
100%, yeah. That was by far, the biggest highlight from my career. Not mind just coaching. It was unbelievable to be a part of that team that won promotion in that way. Especially away from home, and that you look at the young blokes who we had in that team, the homegrown talent we had in that team. The group have been together for a number of years as well, and such a fantastic group of players to work with and staff as well. I've seen how much everyone had put into that year, and to be a part of winning kind of a grand final at any level is pretty special. And to gain promotion the way they did, what an amazing time that was. And again, an amazing place to do it. Toronto, a fantastic city and a big crowd, and it was a fantastic day. You
couldn't come from more traditional stock in the game. When you got down to London, would you call yourself an expansionist, or is that something that has grown on you because you've integrated yourself into what's happening down there?
Yeah, I only admit that when, you know, I was up north originally and, you know, in my early 20s and playing at your Leeds and Castlefords, I wasn't a fan of London really. Didn't see what if they brought much to the game, and again thought we should stick to where the game was strongest up in the north. And you know, it was Brian Mack who sold it to me down here. You know, he'd been down for a year already, and it was he spoke to me on the phone when he was coach and just told me the club, told me how good it was down here, just the lifestyle, the city, what his plans for the club were, and coming down then, you know, I didn't know what to expect. And then, you know, when I did come down and saw the young London lads in the team, you know, went out to coach in schools, went out to coach at these junior clubs, go to junior rugby festivals as part of, you know, the Broncos when we do his little bits of community during the week, and just saw, you know, these kids playing, saw the little festivals before as home games at the Stoop, saw like the minis festivals and how many kids were playing the game, and, you know, the fantastic volunteers that give up the time to promote the sport and be involved in it just because, you know, they love the game. And then, you know, they had the Broncos at kind of the top there with that pathway for them young London kids to go through. You know, that blew my mind, and ever since, you know, I've been sold on it. It's a fantastic city and a great place to play rugby league, and yeah, just like I say, fell in love with what they did down here with the game, and saw the benefits as well, the benefits that a strong London can give to the game, and what it means for the game if it is, you know, a strong foothold down here.
Who did you share a house with when you first got down, and what tales can you tell that won't get us taken off air?
I was just with my missus, so I came down with my missus, so it was quite tame down here then, and not got many tales to tell about me and missus. She was pregnant when we came down with his first child, so came down with her and a couple of dogs, and it's quite a tame life, and that I liked that. I enjoyed that part of it. You know, I played for Leeds and lived in Leeds. I played for Hull and lived in Hull, and you're in a goldfish bowl. It's everywhere you go. It's just rugby. You get recognised everywhere you go, and that's all right when you're a young kid. And yeah, you enjoy that as you get a little bit older. And, you know, I came down here and liked being, you know, a bit of a nobody, like no one recognising me, and you get in more trouble that way, can't you? If no one knows who you are. So,
or you can blame it on somebody else. That's what you can do.
That's it. Yeah, no one has a clue if you're out carrying on in the middle of London. So, no, it was nice. Like I say, I was settling down then. I'd you know, got with my partner. Been with her a couple of years, and it was great to just come down here and escape that kind of goldfish bowl of being up north and playing rugby league in a northern city. So that's what we loved about it.
It's really hard being the son of someone of an incredibly famous father, and there are many that haven't been able to handle that pressure. How did you find it? Because you created your own career despite the fact that you were carrying the Ward name.
It's pretty hard at first, you know. Everyone, like all my mates, just used to call me son of, because whenever my name got mentioned, it would always Danny Ward, son of. So that was my nickname for quite a long time. And you know, certainly signing at a club like Leeds, I kind of took that challenge of, I knew what kind of pressure that had come with going to Leeds when my dad had been there. So it's all kind of come with the territory really. Once I was kind of into the game and around the club, a lot of people still knew my dad, and it was nice. Like I say, it was cool to play for the club, and you know, proud of everything he achieved. So to be a part of the Rhinos as well, and kind of follow that, you know, was a proud moment. And like I said, didn't feel too much pressure in that way, even though, like I say, my mates would give me stick for it. And but yeah, it was awesome. Like, I did have second thoughts about signing for Leeds on my way to signing. I wanted to kind of go back on it and turn it down, because I could have signed at Fev, and my mates were going to Fev as well, and like I think my dad was coach there as well at that time. So it was a tough choice, and I was having kind of second thoughts about going to Leeds and following his footsteps. And you know, I was starting the car on the way over to sign, and too scared to say I've actually changed my mind here, Dad. I don't really want to sign for Leeds, but I was too scared of my old man to tell him that we got in the car and got all suited up to go over to Edinburgh and sign that day, but we didn't want to. Wanted to go to Fev instead with my mates, and but yeah, just bottled it and ended up signing, and it turned out all right.
Part of the golden generation as well. Did you envisage that group that was coming through at the time would have the success it ultimately went on to have?
It did. It felt special coming through. We had such a quality academy side. People like Gaz Carvel, Cine, Jamie Jones Buchanan, Disco. All these lads were just playing in the academy team together, and by the time we all kind of broke into first team, we'd already been playing about 4 or 5 years together, and win the academy championship. So we always knew, people, the lads around you, the strength and how good a team that was, and we knew that transition to first team. If we worked hard, the next crop of juniors coming through, like your Robs and your Dannies, we saw them coming into the academy as well, and there was such incredible buzz around the place. Even in the early 2000s when they lost a couple of finals in the Challenge Cup and got to the semis of the Super League. We kind of knew that the quality was there, but there was also a super amount of pressure on, and we knew the history of Leeds and how long they've gone without a title as well. So there's a lot of pressure really, but as young kids you don't feel it as much. You just enjoy playing it with each other every day. All you want to do is get out there and play rugby with your best mates, and that's what we kind of had really. The team who won that grand final was about 10-11 who come through the system together, been playing that long, either at reserves or academy level, and you were all just like best mates, and so you just had no fear really.
Brian McDermott then sold you on London. What do you make of his return to the sport? Obviously, we're glad to see him back involved, and a bit of a strange one going to Oldham. It certainly came out of left field, but is that kind of a mark of the man himself?
Yeah, it definitely caught everyone off guard, didn't it? But put nothing past Mac. He's a fantastic coach and done it at a very top level. So it's a great signing for Oldham to have. Like I say, I love playing under Mac. It was a reason I came to London. Got a lot to be grateful for, and I'm hoping every success at Oldham, I'm sure will turn around.
In terms of style, you've developed your own, but clearly everybody's influenced by the people they've been under. Did he particularly influence your coaching style in any way?
Massively, yeah. I think again, you take bits off everyone you've been with. I think so. Like Tony Smith coming in at Leeds, where Matt was his assistant. He was fantastic for us all. Working with Darryl Powell in his early coaching career as well, when he transitioned from a player to a coach. Brian Mack, they've all had massive influences on me. And you try and take little snippets of each and every one. Just love Mack's toughness and what he just instilled in us from that. It was all being an ex-Marine and things like that was only Mack's way or the highway. So kind of like that, and Tony and Matt, instilled so many things for just off the field and being a person as well, about being a good bloke. And it's not about, and I think I take that a lot into my coaching. Developing rugby players and developing the teams, just such a small percentage of it. And certainly working with a lot of young players and being involved with Academy at London and seeing them progress to first team, you've got to develop them as young men and give them, some life skills there and life lessons on how to conduct himself off field professionally if they want to get to the top. What they need to do, and just you forget how young some of these lads are, and you go around to one of the clubhouses and you've got 4 18-year-olds all living together, and you're like, well, look at the state of this place and what's. You see some sights going in there, and it's again, sometimes I need a bit of a rocket, sometimes I need an arm around them, but certainly developing, there's just young blokes who don't know much about, the real world at that age. And, I learned a lot from like Tony and Brian Mack about how to, live your life off the field. And it is, it reflects on the way you play them.
It seems a long time ago now that the Great Britain tour, but you were part of that as the one of the assistant coaches. What was the feeling like of being appointed to that and going on tour and working under Wayne Bennett?
That was unreal. It was, like I say, that was in the middle of the Super League season with Broncos, so it was already that was kind of me just my second year in being a head coach. So it just been a massive whirlwind. We got promoted. We was in Super League, up and down in Super League, and then that was my first job interview I'd ever had as well. So it was I never had a job interview in my life, and then it was the first one was with Wayne Bennett. So it was really pretty intimidating, going up to Leeds and meeting the man himself. You know, he's obviously got such a reputation in rugby, and comes with there's all aura around him of what he's done in the game, and he was just a great bloke. Put his at ease straight away, and to get offered that role on a GB tour, that's what we grew up watching. That and the cup final. I always say Wembley, Great Britain shirt. That's what you remember as a kid. Growing up, it was not so much watching my old man play. It was watching, Henderson Gill on telly. Mike Gregory scoring in Australia. Those are the memories that the classic GB kits, and just to be a part of that tour when it had been, Great Britain had been away for such a long time was so special, and representing that, it was a massive honour. So something I'll never forget.
Unfortunately, though, on the field, of course, it wasn't quite as good.
Yeah, well, it was a tough tour. Touring is tough, and certainly to New Zealand and the pressures that the lads, became under, and the criticism, that probably Wayne was coming under as well. It's tough, and I think again, the media men made it look like we'd gone down there and stuffed New Zealand for every game we'd ever played down in New Zealand. So it's always a tough place to go, and there's not many teams who've gone down there and been massively successful. But things could have been better. It was tough, losing to Tonga first up was a setback, and then obviously the more you go on, we should have won the first test against New Zealand, and then it gets harder. But I learned so much, during that time. But they always say you probably learn more in defeat than winning, and just being part of that group was fantastic. Group of players, and now, they just don't let that term. They just go about the business, and that's a sign of the class lads that they are now. They just kept working hard, but it is when you're losing, it does kind of snowball a little bit, and it's tough. You're away from your family, we've been away from his family for 5-6 weeks. That's hard with people with young children, and it's a massive learning experience for me myself, just to be a part of that group, and that setup was unreal. I know the results weren't great, and it'll always probably be deemed as a bit of a disaster, that tour, but I'll always look back on it with fond memories.
We don't know what's going to happen with the World Cup, and we're all incredibly hopeful that it is going to be played. And you may well have a vested interest in this answer, but would you have changed Wayne Bennett's tenure halfway into a World Cup programme?
I don't know. I really don't know. I really like Wayne. Did a great job with England before the GB tour. I can see, the mistakes that were made on that tour as well, and the results weren't great. I get that. It's a results-based business that we're in, and ultimately, you know that when you get into coaching, that you can just be flicked at that next moment. So they've got a fantastic coach in Sean Wayne now, though. Who better to replace him than Sean Wayne, who's going to do a fantastic job as well. So I can't really comment too much. I don't know whether that was the right decision or not. It seemed pretty close to the World Cup when they did it, but they certainly must know what they're doing. And like I say, a fantastic replacement. If you are going to lose Wayne Bennett, you bring in Sean Wayne.
Because we're cheaper than those Great Britain shirts you can now buy on sale, we are running out of time. Phil, have you got any final questions? Because I know you will have.
Well, there can really only be one question, and he knows it's coming. But your playing career, long, distinguished, played with a lot of clubs. Highlight moment has to be an unexpected drop goal at the Boulevard.
Yeah, I don't like talking about that.
You hardly ever mention it.
I only mention it there once weekly a lot, but it was strange. Isn't it? That's probably the thing that gets brought up the most is a drop goal. So it's crazy. It's sweet, and there you go. They're all worth 1 point. It was a bit of a mad situation, and we ended up, I think that made the score 6-1 when I kicked it. So it was just funny just seeing all the lads just laughing around us, even though we're still losing 6-1. But we went on to win, and it's still in the history books now as a 1-pointer. But yeah, it's definitely up there as a highlight. It was on my 21st birthday as well, so it was always a memorable day. And the old Boulevard as well. What a place that was to go to.
And I think the shock from the Leeds fans when it went over was probably greater than the players, to be honest.
I think so, yeah. Sky game as well, and my mum told me off because she can lip read as well, and she can lip read what I said after I'd hit it and it had gone over. So she gave me a slap on the wrist next day as well.
Well, what's going through your mind at that point? What do you think? Oh, yeah, we'll just have a go.
A prop forward. There's nothing much goes through your mind during a game as a prop. So it was just the ball just ricocheted, landed in my hands, and you just stuck your toe in it, don't you? And just hope for the best. So nothing much went through my mind at that point. And then it was a bit of shock. And I think the coach, I don't know what the coach's reaction to that one would have been. I can certainly imagine what mine would have been if one of my prop forwards had dropped a goal at 6-0 down. It'd have been, a few choice words, I think. But it was all right. We ended up winning. And it was a pretty tight game as well. It was winning 7. I think when we scored next, it was like 7-6. And then I think Keith spoiled it because I wanted it to finish 7-6. And then I think Keith Senior or Franny, I think, spoiled it with a try right at the death to take away some of the glory. It'll
never be forgotten. It's in folklore.
Might have it on VHS somewhere in it lost, I think, yeah. I don't think days before all internet and DVDs.
I might make a statue of the moment outside Henley, just a bit smaller than the John Holmes one, I don't know.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Obviously, not doing much at the moment, as you say, enjoying time off, time away from the stress of coaching. When do you think you'd like to be back involved, and how would you like to be back involved in rugby league?
I don't know. I'm not sure on the answer to that one. It's a tough decision because, as I've always said, my life's down here in the south in London at the minute, and we've got to kind of make that decision as a family. That's the problem being down London. All the league jobs are up north. So if I take a league job up north, then it means relocating my wife and kids and moving back up to the north, which is a huge decision for us. So we've got to. I'm just enjoying the time off with them. Enjoy the 6-week holidays with the family. If we've not had one, it's pretty strange. And we'll chat over things between me and my missus, and in the day I'll do what my missus tells me, like every other bloke out there. So,
if you could ask her very politely to say, could you turn down any coaching jobs in rugby union in the south? That the north is still a better option.
I'll make sure she knows that. Yeah, that's it. She's the boss, so it'll be what she decides.
Well, Danny, thank you very much for taking up some of your valuable sunbathing time with us this afternoon. It's much appreciated. Hopefully we see you again involved at some point in the near future. But enjoy the sunshine while we've got it, because you never know when it's going to be rain again.
I'm a ginner, so I can only have about five minutes in it. Then I'm just, like you say, retreat to the shade in here, then come out about 9 o'clock at night like a vampire. So ginger problems.
And it'd be good to have you back on as well, because you've always had that analytical eye about what's going on in the game. It'd be great to have you back on again.
Anytime, fellas. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
Phil just mentioned something which I can't talk about on air because it's positivity. Hopefully, you've just heard Danny Ward speak for 30 minutes about London and his career and stuff, and where and after, because. Well, big news today. Can't believe I heard rumors about it earlier this week, Phil, but they're going to have a short break in the Women's Super League, and it's going to be delayed for a couple of weeks. The World Cup's on, but the Aussies and the New Zealanders aren't coming, which they gave 4 minutes notice apparently to the organisers. Nice of them, isn't it?
Yeah, we're all hot and bothered, and it's got nothing to do with the weather. I'm not sure this is exactly what it seems. I think this is a power struggle for who controls International Rugby League. I think the Aussies were absolutely taken aback last week when the World Cup organisers very bullishly said, "No, it's past the point of no return. We're going ahead. It's happening." And they went, "Well, hang on a minute. We haven't signed our agreement yet, and we're in charge. So we'll give it a couple of days, and then we'll hit you with the big, well, we're not coming." I don't think we've heard the end of this yet. I don't think it's as cut and dry. Everybody's coming up with ideas as to, should North Macedonia now come in and do a Denmark? And I think the interesting part for me is that there seems to have been a division in Australia over this decision, and that's between the administrators and the players and coaches. So Australia and New Zealand have banded together to say, as a governing body, we're not coming. All I can find at the moment on social media are players who are saying they want to come. And perhaps more damningly than that, for them, Michael Maguire, who of course is the coach of New Zealand, has said, yeah, I'd have no problem coming, just as his CEO, Greg Peters, is saying, well, we're not. So I think there's more to play in this. I think it's a muscle flexing exercise. I think the reason that has been used is there isn't enough safety surrounding the squads is spurious at very best, because everybody's listed the events that are going ahead either between now and then or at the same time. So I think there's a little bit of leeway there for everybody to come out intact. So the organisers could say, well, we reaffirmed exactly what we're doing. The NRL can say, well, we had some genuine concerns because we were in Queensland in quarantine, plus we kept looking at all these games that were being called off in Super League, but we've had the assurances that we need, and we will now send a team, or we'll open it to those that have said they want to go. We're not going to force anybody to be vaccinated, or we're not going to force anybody who doesn't want to go to be selected. But even Brad Fittler, who I believe is employed by the New South Wales Rugby League and the NRL to coach the New South Wales team, he's come out in favour of it. So there is a real split in the Southern Hemisphere. You can understand why there would be caution, but I think what they've done today in saying we're not coming, sod you, is basically we don't think you can hold it without us, so that's our gun back at your head. You know that gif they've got where two supermen are pointing guns at each other? This is it.
It's all good fun, isn't it? The World Cup's going to happen. It can't be delayed, apart from if there's lockdown or something else comes across that we don't know about. But for any other reason, it can't. I keep seeing people saying, "Oh, we can delay it to 2022." No, we can't. There's no room in the sporting calendar where it will fit because of the Commonwealth Games, because of the Football World Cup, the Premier League kicking off at a weird time because of that, the World Cup being played in Qatar and so on and so forth. It can't happen. It's either going to be played this year or it won't be played at all.
I suspect that the people that will decide that as well include government, who put the money up, the BBC, who have said they'll film it. If they say it's got to go ahead in that slot and that's the support we can give it, we can't give it any support at any other time, then it'll happen. And if it has to happen with composite teams representing Australia and or New Zealand, or both replacement teams, of which there are teams out there. And what we shouldn't forget is this isn't just looking for two men's teams. It'll be a women's team. It'll be a wheelchair team. That there are already other nations that could realistically play and would be eligible to play as the next in line. Of course, it wouldn't be the same, but it'll be a World Cup. And I think you're right. What the organisers said last week was we're going ahead. What they've said this week is we're not coming. I think we've then had some pretty strong statements from people who are Troy Grant has issued his statement, and Simon Johnson's issued his.
I have in my hand a piece of paper, Phil, for immediate release. Super League is disappointed that the ARL Commission and the NZRL have announced their withdrawal from RLWC 2020, blah, blah, blah. To break this devastating news and to leave the organisers with a matter of minutes to prepare for its public release is astonishing. Super League chairman Ken Daly said, quote, "The organisers have done everything possible to provide both nations with strong evidence of the robust protocols and procedures to keep players safe. It is quite astounding that athletes from Australia and New Zealand are about to compete in the Olympics in addition to the Australian and New Zealand rugby union teams in the UK this autumn, yet their rugby league counterparts have decided to withdraw." He continues, "The UK has already shown it can successfully deliver a major international event in Euro 2020 under far stricter conditions to those anticipated in the autumn. We are fully behind John Dutton and his team. We continue to offer Super League's utmost support to the tournament organisers, given the significant benefits this event can deliver for the sport. I think we need to make sure we remember that quote, just in case in the future players don't turn up for the World Cup. But there's Ken Davies come out all guns firing.
Yeah, we really, really want to support a competition by not altering our domestic schedule to help that competition, he said. But the truth is that, again, if you listen to a lot of what Shane Richardson has said, reported in the new edition of 4020, he is saying that the Aussies don't really know who they're dealing with. So, you know, you put them up Ralph Rimmer, you put them up Ken Davey, you put them up Simon Johnson, you put them up Claire Balding. They're going, unless you've got a leadership that, you know, it's easy to tap into. There's all these voices, but it's white noise. So I think, you know, Ken saying that adds to the, you know, the furore that's going around them. I don't think it takes us anywhere. But, you know, we'll see how it plays out. I think there are enough players that will still want to play. And unless they are, there's an injunction served against them preventing them from playing. I think there are enough coaches that, you know, how's Trent Robinson going to turn around to James Tedesco and say, well, I'm going to help France, but you can't go and play for Australia and or Italy. So there's still mileage in this year. It's who is in charge of International Rugby League. And the Aussies have always wanted it to be them, still do. And in some respects, almost are at the head of the queue on the basis of the fact that we haven't beaten them for 50 years in the international game, which we shouldn't forget. But they, you know, in the same way that club owners over here don't want to give up power to an independent commission because they might not then have power, the NRL is the most powerful competition in the world of rugby league. The World Cup could be more powerful. They're not going to cede power to it. But I think we haven't heard the last of this. What
about the English players in the NRL? What about they? What do they think?
I'm assuming that they're planning on coming home when the season is finished. Will there be a stipulation that they're not allowed to play rugby when they get here? Again, it's going to be a negotiation between the player and the club. It's going to be very, very hard. You know, if Jack Whiten's saying, if there's an Australian team, I want to play for it. If Canberra then turn around to Ryan Sutton and say, there's a World Cup, you can't play in it. So I think, again, the Peter V'landys and or the NRL get rightly praised for being belligerent in their attitude, if you like, railroading things through, which most people see for being the overall benefit. I think they've got this one wrong.
Good old Phil Gould, though. He's still, you know, he don't know, does he? He doesn't know. I get this feeling sometimes. And again, I'm not Australian. I've never been to Australia. I don't know many Australians. Well, I know John Davidson. He's Australian. But the perception of rugby league, certainly with something like this, it appears they want it to be like the AFL, where, you know, it's just their own little thing. You know, New South Wales against Queensland, they hate each other, lock everyone else out, no one cares. We invite New Zealand because they live next door, and we have to let Tonga and Samoa in because half of our bloody players are of their heritage, but we just pretend they're not for our own purposes. It's like the NFL. It's like, the world champions win the Super Bowl. I mean, granted, yeah, if you put the Leeds Lions or whatever up against the New England Patriots, they ain't going to win. But it does seem to be they're getting more and more insular over this. And I know in the middle of a pandemic, I know there are reasons not to come. But if the players want to,
I'm not even sure it's insularity. I think it's finance. I think the NRL was carrying so much debt when the pandemic hit that they very nearly went under. I mean, we know how precarious things are in Super League and the Championship and League One. We've got, again, half the games off this week. It's hanging by a thread. You know, there but for the grace of Hull KR, you know, the integrity of the competition this weekend is probably gone. But the truth is that, you know, the higher the stake over there, if they hadn't been able to play and V'landys hadn't come up with a plan to keep the game going when every other sport was saying we have to stop, there wouldn't be an NRL. So all they're looking to preserve is the NRL. If they want to start pre-season training early, they want to have their friendly matches. It's all about maintaining the value of the NRL. They don't care about the World Cup because they don't make any money out of it. And it might slightly impinge upon when their star names come back that won't be able to play in the NRL. But that's why the IRL does need to put its foot down. And I think it does need to say, we're going ahead. This, we can have a World Cup without you. We have a whole calendar and programme of events. You can either be part of it or don't, but it's not going to stop. And what then tends to happen is people then seem to think we're back the wrong horse. We have to find a way of getting back into this because we need to be. And once you show people you can survive without them, they suddenly want to come to your party.
Jacob Rees-Mogg says they're scared, so of being beaten. So that shows exactly what Jacob Rees-Mogg knows about rugby league. Man of the people,
well,
he is.
I'm scared of listening to Jacob Rees-Mogg because I have no idea what he's going to talk about, and I don't think I want to hear it.
On the Today programme and everything today, talking about rugby league.
You see that
president or whatever, chairman. That's it.
The annoying thing from over here is that everybody will now be saying we only get the headlines when it's bad news. This is a huge story, and it has captured the imagination, and everyone and their dog, including us at this very moment, and probably even including your dog, is talking about it. And that's the problem. It's not a problem. That's why international rugby actually is so important, because a story like this breaks down all of the media barriers. Our good friend Mr. Davidson's been on to BBC Scotland because they were due to be playing Australia. We've got friends in Coventry who've already been in touch today saying we've geared everything up for community activity around Scotland playing Australia in Coventry. The knock-on effect is not just Australia and New Zealand are not coming. It's actually given us a huge profile in the news over here, probably that we didn't want. We're having to justify a negative.
I don't think people realise, and we're lucky enough from our perspective to see the workings of the World Cup from a privileged position, but it has been an extremely well-run tournament up until this point where, we haven't seen a ball kicked or whatever, but you think about the draw at Buckingham Palace, Prince Harry's involvement, which was wonderful timing in every sense, the integration of the women's and the wheelchair events into this. And it's all right saying the Australian men aren't coming over or whatever, but, what about the knock-on effects with those two tournaments and the power that they have in terms of growing the sport? There's been so much hard work and good work put into this tournament that I am very much of the perspective, and I know people say, well, it's not a real World Cup if Australia aren't there or New Zealand aren't there. And we said this the other day. It matters that the tournament's on, that people can go and enjoy a festival of rugby league, because with the best will in the world, they don't know who James Tedesco is. People in Coventry don't know who James Tedesco is. People in wherever the other games have been played don't know who these people are, because they're not world superstars. We're not talking about Usain. If Usain Bolt pulls out of the other week they had the athletics in Gateshead, and Dina Asher-Smith pulled out because she had a slight injury or something, and it would pull out. It wouldn't be beneficial for her Olympic campaign. She's a name people have heard of. No one's heard of these people, so it doesn't matter. And I know that's counterproductive, but it doesn't matter.
I think the other thing to sort of throw into the debate as well is that it might matter, but there is still a way within the terms of the competition that the IRL could nominate an Australia 13 and a New Zealand 13. They can, clearly the participation agreement is to be signed by the ARLC and the NZRL, but under extraordinary circumstances, and they don't come much more extraordinary than this, they can do what they did with Tonga. So there was a dispute between who was going to be seen as the governing body in Tonga to represent Tongan Rugby League. And while that was being sorted out, the IRL stepped in and said, we will recognise a Tonga 13. And they could do that. And the Australians and New Zealanders that are playing over here could form that team. Some players who want to come that are given dispensation by their coaches could come. And it wouldn't be Australia without the appendage of a 13, but it's still Australia. They could still play in green and gold. They could still play in black and white or a derivation thereof. It would still be a World Cup. As I think we may have said at the time when the Combined Nations All-Stars game was on. It didn't stop it being a game, reported on a game. Not too many people other than those who knew Rugby League were saying, well, I'm not sure how England players can play in a team against it. Yeah, it was a game. It was credible. It was reported. People paid to go and see it. Television showed it. It's in the record books. No caps were awarded. Don't go on the phone, Scully. But do you know what I mean? It's like it existed as something that, you know, was viable. And we can do the same with the World Cup. Or if we have to replace them, and we've said this before, you know, the Olympics of 1980 and 1984 do not have asterisks in them. Certain nations, for whatever reason, chose not to go. And none of the people who were crowned gold medal winners were told, actually, it's only made out of aluminium this year because somebody who would have won it didn't turn up. No, this year may be the year that maybe Australia and New Zealand don't play in it. It would still be a World Cup.
It's all exciting, isn't it? It's all drama. It's all drama and excitement. Where's Kerry Packer when you need him to set up some kind of thing? Or, you know, we had those rebel cricket tours where they didn't bother about, you know, racist governments to go off and play, but going into politics. The big thing coming out today is people are going to be asking us, how come buying the balls have SCOE on and you don't? Well, it's technology. That's why. He's an
audio man, not a visual man.
There you go. So when he's back, he'll be back.
I haven't heard that yet, but I suspect they've recorded it on his phone.
Ban him
for the next two, because that'll really help. If they don't come to this one, don't let them come to the next two either. That we haven't even said that we're having yet.
No. Someone said, has he been cancelled? No, he was uncancelled. Do you remember he was back? And then COVID. Yeah, forget about that. We were going to do the show from Bradford on Monday, but we're not now. So that's a positive.
There's a benefit to everything. I mean, I think, again, that we spoke, didn't we, on whenever it was we last spoke, because I've no idea what day of the week it is, saying that maybe Super League needs to decide what games it needs between now and the end of the season, redraw the competition, you know, make sure that as many matches that can be played in front of a crowd are big attractions rather than just cramming in fixtures. Well, I mean, to be fair, the women have sort of done that. They had a break coming up. They brought it forward. They want to stabilise the competition. We miss around, but we already know who the top five are and the bottom five are. And, you know, they were going to split and play. So Leeds don't play St Helens on Twitch this Monday, but they will still play St Helens in an equally, if not more meaningful game in the playoffs. The teams who were looking to say it's going to be difficult for us to raise a team to play opposition that perhaps are going to, you know, take us to the cleaners, they don't have to play them now. So I think, again, that's showing that the women's competition in many respects is actually leading the way governance-wise.
Oh, you upset people now. Should St Helens have delayed their bus thing until, you know, things were a bit more normal?
Well, Cass
or am I being a bit?
Yeah, I think so. Cass didn't have one, and they've suffered COVID as well. So I don't think we can blame the bus too.
It looked great though, didn't it? The pictures and integration again, and all that kind of stuff. So,
and bare bottoms, yeah, we love that.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Thankfully, no flares. Although they do have flares in St Helens.
I think that's all the Rugby League news in the last 2 days, isn't it? Because it was Tuesday when we last availed ourselves of the world of Rugby League. But well done to Hull KR, as you referenced. They are playing Catalans this weekend, which they weren't supposed to be doing. So well done to them. That is you know, great work from that. I mean, they need to play games because they haven't played for a long time, but not easy to. It's not as if they're popping along to Castle. They're off to Catalans. They're probably going to get hammered because Catalans are really good. I've seen them.
And we won't see it because it's not on the telly.
No. Someone did ask Hulk on Twitter, can you just put it on Facebook? No, because that's not how TV rights work.
Can you film it on your phone and not tell anybody?
People will try do that. That's the ridiculous nature of these things. But, well, not that any Hulk fans will be there, of course. But, well, what an exciting week of stuff. The magazine is out. People have read it. Someone's already... someone's already referenced what I wrote on my column about a certain other columnist. So I hope that came out okay. I ran it by her first. Head injuries. Apparently the government say it's not sport's fault. So it's all right now. Everyone can go smack each other now. They have forgotten that one of their peers retired extremely early because of repeated concussions. They've forgotten that, haven't they?
Yes. I haven't seen the final conclusions of their report, but I know Mr. Ward was on the BBC this morning talking about it.
He was on there. Claire Balding was on there. I don't know if Claire Balding was on there to talk about something else, and then they realised I don't watch BBC Breakfast, but the Olympics have started, and of course now because the Olympics is off to Brisbane, this is the other thing that happened. Rugby League, which of course can't organise in a brewery, is going to be part of the Olympics in Brisbane because everyone's saying it will be, which of course it won't because we're not a truly global sport, much like, you know.
We could be an exhibition sport because there are a certain number that are allowed, so 9s could be used as a, but again, what's the point of issuing a statement one day saying we want to be part of the Olympic Games and the next day saying, even though it's in Australia don't want to be part of International Rugby League? So I think we need to sort ourselves out before 2032.
And with Rugby Sevens already in, it's, you know, you get this all the time, but darts should be an Olympic sport. Yeah, well, it's a bit tiring. It just seems a bit of a pointless. I'm not saying to say it shouldn't be in the Olympics or not. I'm not saying it should, but it's just a tiring argument because it's just utterly pointless, and we could spend our time on more important things like, you know, the World Cup, the future of the international game as a whole, or, you know, pipe dreams about someone on the junket in Brisbane. But no, that's what we do. Right. I think that's it, isn't it? So we're going to stop talking now, but we'll have already recorded a bit. I don't know what order I'm going to do it in. You'll have to work it out for yourself. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll be back on Monday.
And buy the magazine.
Buy the magazine. It'll be on screen somewhere. I'm not going to point because I got it wrong the other day. And we'll be back on Monday in situ because we won't be in Bradford, which, you know, as much as I was looking forward to Leeds and St Helens, sometimes you think, well, yeah,